the chicken plow. You tell me what else is on the menu, please, sir, for today.
This is a Mugi MA1 little practice amp. And if you Google a picture of it, you're not going to see this backplate, because this amp has been rebuilt by electrical tape a year and a half ago. This is the expert quality work by the masterful amp rebuilder known as Black Electrical Tape. But that's not all he did. He didn't just make a backplate. He also unplugged the battery, because this used to be a battery powered amp. That's what used to be here. Instead of this backplate was an orange backplate that had a battery cover on it. And it would also appear that he repaired a break right here in this PCB. I don't know if he caused it first, but looks like he fixed it with a couple of solder bridges there. And he also loosened these up really nice. Look at that. It's like, that's pretty bad, man. It's pretty frayed. And that's the extent of the amp rebuilding by our masterful Black Electrical Tape amp rebuilder. Let's take all the guts out of this and look at them real close. Well, I wasn't able to see this before. Some JB Weld. Looks like it wasn't mixed all the way before he put it on there too. But yeah, I'm gonna say this amp actually wouldn't work with that break there. So, assuming that he didn't break this himself, Black Electrical Tape appears to have fixed this amp. And on this board, an unsurprising collection of surface mount components. More than I thought there would be. All it is a little practice amp. How much does it really need, man? There's 4 ICs on here. It doesn't have any effects or anything. Anyway, I'd like to turn this into a tube amp. It should be a lot of fun considering this is our chassis. Just a bent piece of metal. It's just supposed to go over the back plate. There's a little gap right here. It's supposed to be like that. So we got nowhere to put tubes or transformers or anything. Around the front we get this fully custom Velcro grill cloth hiding this spectacular speaker. That's not the worst speaker we could have. And I did actually try this amp in its original solid state form, and it sounded, you know, not terrible. I don't think Black Electrical Tape is responsible for this. I think this is factory. So we're gonna cover that little hole because tube amps are open in the back. We'll make some kind of a back similar to the way this is done. Chair noises. The camera's steady. You're not a very good YouTuber. So we're gonna take a leaf out of insert random person on YouTube that builds vacuum tube guitar amps as a hobby here's book, and copy an existing amplifier. We've never done that before on this channel. So now that's taken care of. We're gonna make a Fender 5F1 Tweed Super Mini Orange amp. Except this amp is kind of too small for that. You see the inside compartment is just under 7 inches tall. The chassis from a 5F1 is over 4 inches tall. And the tubes have to be able to fit as well. If I just lean this tube up like this, and then we have us a look, it won't fit. We only have about 3 inches of space to work with vertically. That means that the 5F1 eyelet board will not fit, which is just as well, because look close, you see the speaker is offset to the left. Power transformer is supposed to go on the left, and there ain't no room for it. It has to go on the right, so we're gonna have to mirror the chassis and miniaturize it. But other than that, we're gonna be copying a 5F1. I made this chassis here out of some paint grip sheet metal. It is 7 inches wide, 3 inches tall, 3 inches deep. Fit just like that. So we can have our controls on the top just like the original Tweed would have. And there's enough room for tubes. See? Barely, but this chassis is actually deeper than the original 5F1 chassis, which doesn't make anything better. In fact, it makes it where I have to move the handle now, but I'm not going to remake the chassis. This is what we're working with. This is the transformer out of a ICO something little radio, and you know, it ran at 250 volts. I'm going to use it as the power transformer for this little 5F1 clone, because you know, it's way smaller than it's supposed to be. Also, I'm not going to have the volume knob be the power switch. It's going to have a separate power switch and an LED for a indicator, and no rectifier tube. We're getting kind of far away from a real 5F1 clone at this point. Since the 5F1 eyelet board won't fit and it's backwards, we use this little terminal board thing instead. I got this pile of cheap bullshit components, so I super glued these nuts on this board so that I can go ahead and put all the components on it, because otherwise I'd be making it impossible. That'll sit in there like that. The wires are conveniently the exact right length by complete chance, so I'll just wire it all up and that's the Mugi, a super mini replica of a Fender 5F1 Tweed using a Amperex 12AX7 made in West Germany and a Tunsol 6v6 made in Russia. So like top of the line tubes, you know, and all bullshit cheap components, and it sounds great now that there's a copper shield. We didn't have this copper shield during the audio demonstration, and as a result you can hear some noise that's no longer there, but we're not going to re-record it and let you see how it would sound like that. The shield is soldered to the chassis on this piece of copper foil, and a corresponding piece of copper foil is soldered on the shield, and they overlap just above that screw. It would seem that the bullshit cheap components used to build this amp don't single-handedly make it sound like shit. Let's have a listen to the noise floor with and without the copper shield. As you can see, that's a pretty huge difference. You can probably hear it without the fancy mic hooked up. The copper shielding makes so much of a difference that it doesn't matter what you made this amp out of, it was probably going to sound like crap without it. But we won't be testing that theory anytime soon. Around here on the front, you'll see that we turned the speaker slightly. That was necessary to make the terminals accessible. In order to make the speaker baffle go on, we had to do this slight modification here. Not much to it. It still just sticks on with Velcro. And the G is conveniently darkened, so it looks like it says Mugi from the side here. Got the virtual center tab here on the tube socket, and it works just fine. And this transformer happens to have a shield in it, and that's what that white wire is. It's tied in with the ground. It's not a filament center tab. The circuit here is exactly a 5F1, except that the two grid stop resistors have been combined into one because there's a single input. And that single input is non-grounding. Also, the filter caps are all 22 microfarad. And that completes the list of things that separate this amp from an actual 5F1 clone. But I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It turned out much better than we thought it would. So, that's the Mugi, third in a series of bullshit cheap practice amps to be turned into proper tube amps using random stuff. And the first one that actually turned out any good. Now be sure and go watch some apocalypse cartoons because it's important for your emotional development.